Hello everyone and welcome to episode 49 of GuildGab. This is a show all about everything Guild Wars 2, and today we're going to be talking about a lot of different topics. Last weekend was a big weekend. We have a release date, October 23rd. The base game has gone play for free. We've got raids, legendary armor, we got a free outfit, there's a Morgem event coming up, there is a beta weekend coming up, the list just goes on and on and on, so let's get started. But before we do, I'm your host AuroraPeachy, and with me today is Akasaurus Rex, Alex of the RPG Shack, and MMO Inks. What's up, guys? How you doing today?
Yeah, fantastic.
Ready to get into the meat. Let's jump right in to the release date. October 23rd.
Yeah,
we got
finally.
that last Friday. They tweeted it out. They announced it on Points of Interest. They actually had Colin come onto Points of Interest and say...
Colin's.
Yep, release date. Oops. Sorry, we had some repeating music there. So hyped! The music just kept going. Too hyped.
It was unconstrained.
So, was this a surprise to anybody?
Not to me.
No, massively.
I kind of expected I was certainly hoping they would announce it this weekend, and I was certainly hoping they would get it in before the release date would be before the Christmas crush, and November 10th as well, because Fallout 4. And even though they're both very different games, they're still fairly big RPG IPs, and unfortunately, as much as we all love Guild Wars 2, I think we can agree that ArenaNet perhaps can't fight with Bethesda that well, considering the powerhouse that they are. But having said that, getting in before Fallout 4, getting Colin to announce it and dropping all the other information at the same time, I think was a fantastic move.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It was a
What's interesting
surprise.
about that is this is a very Blizzard kind of tactic. Now, obviously, Heart of Thorns has been announced way longer than Fallout 4, and so not exactly like a Blizzard tactic, but October 23rd, Heart of Thorns launches, right? And then a couple weeks later, raids start to get released into the game, and this could, I mean, this is speculation, we don't actually know, but this could happen right around the launch of Fallout 4. So, hey, you know what? You've been playing Heart of Thorns now for a couple of weeks. You've been enjoying yourself, but you're starting to get to the end of the story content, perhaps. Maybe you've been doing fractals in the meantime. Your masteries are getting to the point of, you're satisfied with the middle ground that you've made there. Now you need some more content. You need some more end game content. And sure, Fallout 4 is coming. It's very exciting. It's going to be a very big game for many people. But now raids launch, and now this reinvigorates content for you to do within the game itself. And I think that's pretty interesting. Like I said, WoW does this a lot with theirs, where they'll launch the game, they'll wait a couple of weeks, and the raids always seem to come out or launch when some other game is getting ready to launch or some other game is getting ready to come out. And this is... this is part marketing. I'm not sure ArenaNet's really doing a marketing kind of thing here, but the timing is just like sort of a perfect lineup of how this could end up shaking out.
Yeah, absolutely. I hadn't thought of that actually. It was just kind of like, we're getting raids at the same time, and now of course Colin said on Colin and Mo said on Saturday that they're going to be coming out, and then they've kind of paced it quite well, because Colin was talking about the second and third tier of the raids as well that are going to come out in increments. So you're not going to be able to blast through all of that content in one sitting, despite the fact that from what they were saying, it's going to completely destroy us. So we're not going to be able to complete it in one sitting anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
How long did it take the triple-headed worm to be defeated?
Couple of weeks?
Couple of weeks? Week?
Well, Europe did it in 4 or 5 days, and North America was like several days after. I think North America, it took us about a week, or almost a week and a half.
But you guys...
It took almost a week for Europe.
Yeah. You guys got to Quaffle down first, though, didn't you, on Blackgate?
Yeah, well, that was day one. Tequato was killed within, like, I want to say 6 hours or something of launch. But, you know, here's the thing about raids and the difficulty and stuff. You know, Triple Trouble Worm, one of the big things was, of course, there were some bugs with scaling, and there were some bugs within the fight itself. And so killing him was a little bit of an RNG, like, crapshoot, because if you got things perfectly, if he didn't upscale on you, if the scaling didn't bug out, then you had a much better chance of killing him. The other thing was learning the tactics and herding 120 cats, so to speak, into the right positions. You know, in North America, we did a lot of silly things as well. We tried to run this DPS roaming team that would go from worm to worm to worm as quickly as possible and help clean up the trash. We weren't doing things like egg blocking. We weren't really pulling out Condi teams right away or DPS teams right away. That's all stuff, that's all strategy that gets refined over time. Even when our first kill came, we still weren't doing things like 100% like we do now, obviously, which just makes the entire experience nearly fail-safe. And so a lot of that will come and go with raids as well, and there will be a learning curve. And hopefully, with these raid bosses, the learning curve will be a lot sharper. It will take guilds a lot longer to figure out the mechanics of at least some of the bosses, and there's 3 bosses plus dynamic events within these raids. So Triple Trouble Worm is really just one boss, where the raid wing is 3 bosses plus dynamic event or events, making it a much longer, in-depth experience, I think.
We also have the there's also the need to have specific masteries for these raids, as opposed to like the Worm and Tequalo didn't have that requisite. So it's going to be interesting to see how long masteries take to complete, and then you'll have to see like if you have them as well. So that might factor in as well to it, and of course also having the much more smaller, tighter packed number of people as opposed to just having, you know, Zergfest to inks, as you're saying, like herd one section and hope the other section does it. You're going to actually have to be like, dude, don't go over there, go over here, and crap like that, and more traditional.
I don't think Triple Trouble's really a Zerg fest. I mean, if you try and Zerg it, you're going to fail.
No, I meant like mostly the Tequado one, most things. Just that kind of like
right, but more than the raids. You're absolutely right, Ak. That, you know, every single person is going to have to be on point. They're going to have to be paying attention and doing exactly what they need to do, and have the build that they need to have as well, and use the weapons that they need to use. We got kind of that extended information in the second blog post this week about raids, talking about how you might have to, you know, if you're the warrior, you might have to have a certain very specific tanky build with certain specific traits. And I don't know if this is going to be every single raid, or if this is going to be like, okay, this one needs very specific builds. But I thought that was very interesting that they're trying to incorporate skills, weapons, traits that I think they're gonna I have the feeling that they're going to pick ones specifically because they're less used. Like, they're gonna take the least used traits, the least used weapons, and kind of try to incorporate that so that you have this variety, and that definitely keeps the game fresh.
I think that, or at least what I kind of got from the announcement, wasn't necessarily that you have to have the specific build, but you have to have a specific level of skill with the game. And to me, that's a much more important aspect of it. I mean, like, anyone can drop into meta battle and just go, yeah, I'll be a phalanx strength warrior or whatever. But it's only, you know, if you don't learn the build, then you can't use it effectively. And I'd much rather have somebody who wasn't part of the current meta or whatever, who could effectively play their build, rather than just having someone who happened to have who was okay and could run a meta build. And to me, having someone who is, for lack of a better expression, who is better at the game, and not necessarily running the top build, to me is just as viable a strategy as taking a whole bunch of top builds or whatever. And I think that's part of what Colin tried to say, that all of this content has to be accessible to everybody, no matter how you play the game, and it has to be achievable with all various ways that you can play particular classes. What will make it inaccessible or unachievable to people is if they don't have the requisite skill level. And I think that that is the way to design content like that, rather than saying you have to have these specific skills on your bar. Just because something doesn't really get used, to me, isn't that much of a reason to put something in. Let's say, for example, I don't know, like a Condi Engi or something is really, really useful here, or like an Aura Elementalist, and for whatever reason you run an Aura Elementalist in that specific part of the dungeon, and that's it. You never run it anywhere else in the game. To me, that's kind of that it makes that build a little bit redundant, because you're making it exclusive to play in that one area, rather than the skill of the player dictating how the raid progresses and finishes. If that rambling diatribe makes sense. That's a really good
point. Yeah, no, that's a really good point. And although I think that there's going to be, there's people are going to kind of figure out a meta at some point, especially because it's specifically 10 people. So they're going to say, okay, that's one thing that I kind of fear is that then, okay, you need 2 warriors, 3 rangers, and it's going to be like, this is how you beat it, rather than being able to bring in whatever you want.
Nike from D&T, who I did the post show with, I apologize for the noise. He put a post on Reddit today, and this is something he talked about in the show as well. He's hoping for, and I guess it's sort of a petition as well, in that these effects, like Fouling Strength Warrior, can affect 10 players.
Yeah.
And the reason that this is important, like the Rangers effects as well, if these utilities, if these skills, if these boons and buffs and stuff, if those affect 10 players, this opens up the raid composition to a much broader range. If this only affects 5 people, let's just take a Phalanx Strength Warrior, which is probably going to be absolutely necessary for a raid. If he doesn't affect 10 people and he only affects 5 people like he does now, you now have to run 2 of them. Mm-hmm. That means that takes a spot away from another class, because you have to have 2 of those in order to cover the entire raid with that strength buff.
Yeah, absolutely.
I could see them trying to fine-tune the abilities to be more raid specific that way, just as because that's a great point. Is for them, they'll probably start one would hope to start going oh, we should actually tune these utility abilities to specifically be 10, because that's the raid composition to allow that.
I mean, someone in chat is, I'm going to call this out. Someone in chat is saying, let's break the whole game balance just for raids. It doesn't have to be that way. ArenaNet can separate and put in special conditions just for raids.
Yes.
They can do it for structured PvP.
Yeah, that's true.
They have in the past. There's no reason why this couldn't be done just for raids. It doesn't have to be game-wide. But in raids, this is extremely important. If you do not separate this, or if you don't have this be a thing where it affects 10 players instead of 5, you're narrowing extremely the amount of players and classes that you can bring to this. People are wondering, is my class going to be up to par? Is the spec I play up to par for raids? If you have to bring 2 warriors just to cover strength, it extremely and Nike covers all this in his post. You guys can read it on Reddit. But this extremely limits the different combinations you can bring into raids if you want to be the most successful at it. This doesn't mean that you wouldn't be able to complete it or you couldn't do it without this composition, but there's always going to be players who look for the most effective way to do something. And if you're trying to be the most effective, just like the current dungeon meta, it extremely limits what you're able to do.
It's a very good point. I'm actually looking forward to, as a more casual player, if I want to do these raids at all, I'm going to have to learn my build. I'm going to be forced to go into that part of Guild Wars that I'm not that familiar with, and really concentrate on that part of it. So that part of it I'm excited for. But you're absolutely right about that they could separate this, because raids are instanced. These are not open world, so you can very easily make that a separate effect while you're in the raid. Absolutely.
I was actually, Peachy, just like real quick, I was just going to say that when I first saw the announcement for these raids and just the basic, preliminaries, especially that crazy ass trailer and that thing with the 1,000 tentacle jaws mouths, I kind of like was slightly scared, to be honest, because like I was kind of like, wow, that's big and awesome, but just because I am a very kind of casual person, I'm just kind of like, right, well, I'm going to go to the corner and take my tea, and the inks of the world can attack that, and I'll just sit back and watch. So I just found it really intense. I was like, holy wow.
Somebody left a comment on somebody else's video.
I'll be right back.
It wasn't one of my videos, but somebody left a comment on a video saying that how awesome would it be, and this is not something I expect to happen, but how awesome would it be if you could spectate raids somehow? If like that was something you could check off on like your guild panel to say like, yes, people can spectate our guild doing raids. Now I know there's some guilds who are not going to stream raids. There's some guilds who are not going to want you to see what they're doing because they're trying to get to world first. They're trying to evolve their own tactics, and I understand that, but it's not something I exactly expect. But how cool would that be in order to be able to spectate somebody else raiding? I mean, obviously you can watch people stream on Twitch or something if they're going to do that, but that would just be a really cool feature.
Yeah,
it would be kind of neat if like you could like vote or almost like for like the people that you like or something. If like a spectator thing like that, just to, I don't know. Sorry, yeah, Alex, what were you saying?
I was going to say, sorry, the door went there. There's a bit of chat, a bit of talk in chat about the 10-man buffs being game wide. If we covered that.
Well, we talked about it a little bit. Some people have very strong feelings that this would either affect or maybe it wouldn't affect the game that much. But my point is ArenaNet, if they really wanted to, and there's a lot of, questions about how this actually would work. But if ArenaNet wanted to, they could definitely instance this only to like raids. You know what I mean? Yeah. They could break that off and split it. Now I know ArenaNet's not too keen on doing that sort of thing. They don't necessarily like splitting the skills up so that when you're in structured PvP, this skill does this, but it doesn't do that in PvE. It causes some confusion in players for sure. But it is an option that they could explore and that they could look at.
Yeah. I mean, it would be a bit crazy for something like World v World if you doubled the amount of people that your boons could hit. That would be and there's points made about this on the chat as well. I mean, in standard PvE, I can't really see it making much of a difference aside from like Tequatl and Triple Trouble, because obviously in dungeons you're 5-man anyway. But I think that you'll have some real problems in World v World if you start doubling the number of people that your boons can hit.
It would just change things. I don't think it would be the end of the world, or it wouldn't just make things all of a sudden everything is just like one hit kill or whatever, but it would change the overall that
yeah.
It would they could do it, but I don't see any reason, because they've designed the game for it to affect 5 people. I don't see any reason for them to make it game wide when the raids are instanced. If the raids weren't instanced, they would have to really try and think, well, do we do it in just this area, in just this map? Do we do it worldwide? But because it's instanced, I don't see any reason for them to do it outside of raids. And I hope that they do it in raids, because like you said, that there are all the problems with that. I absolutely agree.
This also brings into question, how exactly do you group up for raids? Is it going to let you create a 10-man party? Oh. Is it 2 5-man parties? How does that exactly work? And if they do allow you to group up into 1 10-man party, why can't that be added to World vs. World? Certainly in Dungeons and in Fractals it doesn't work because those are 5-man instances, but for the open world, for World vs. World, if you can group into 10s, then I could definitely see players asking for the ability to do that then in those formats. Mm-hmm. Maybe not so much if it's limited to your skills only affecting 5 people, but that is a question that a lot of people are asking. How are raids going to work? Is it 2 5-man parties, or is it going to be 1 10-man party? And that's something that we haven't really had a concise answer on just yet.
Right. There could be a raid lobby that you go into if it's 10-man, truly 10-man parties, and they said these are 10-man, so I could. In Guild Wars 1, it was pretty much it was 8 players in a group, but there was like what, 1 or 2 specific places where you could have 16 people in a party, correct?
Vizanu Square? Yeah, Vizanu Square and factions.
So and that was that they didn't extend that to the entire game. You know, you still had it was 4 or 6 depending on where you were in what campaign, but at the end game in all the campaigns it was 8 people to a party, but in that one specific place it was 16. So
it was Urgol's Warren, I think.
Okay, yeah.
So
yeah,
Urgol's Warren or the Deep, I think.
Right. So in these elite areas of the game, they upped the size. Now I don't know. I don't remember if there was like a lobby or something, but I could see there being a raiding lobby. So anybody who wants to do the raid goes into this lobby, and then in that instance, you can create your 10-man party.
Well, wouldn't you be able to like make them in your guild halls? Like when they want to try to maybe do that, like to like make your party in your guild halls, and then you go to that big magical zappy thing to zap to the instance.
That's a good point. You probably can do that as well, but if you're not in the same guild with someone who you want to raid with, I don't think that being in the same guild should be a requirement to be in the same raiding party.
No. Yeah, I guess that's true.
Or to be able to be together in the same instance in order to talk about it. You know, I could see someone joining the party even if they can't get into your guild hall, but if you want to physically be there and you know, talk in say chat or whatever about your builds, about your classes, then there needs to be somewhere that you can meet up outside of the raid, all 10 of you, and discuss your builds and stuff. There's got to be, other than the guild hall.
So they'd probably be like somewhere in like Lion's Arch, I think. Maybe they might like open up a section there, special sector for raid meetings. But we also heard that we're getting that legendary armor stuff, which we haven't heard much.
That's what I was just gonna say. I lost it. Legendary armor.
Legendary armor.
Legendary armor.
Which, if you read that blog post, gives you a little bit of a clue that says it activates some kind of animation when you're in battle. Your armor comes alive.
Yeah.
What?
It's awesome.
Well, it's got to do something big and flashy, right? We already have the footprints from the legendary weapons, so it can't exactly do that same thing. So it does have to, I don't know, animate or something.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. What I'd love to see is something along the lines of what the glint aspect does on the Revenant, where it kind of like lights up little bits of your armor and whenever it activates, and so it looks a little bit Transformers-y and yeah, just something really cool. I don't think they're going to let us down because most of the legendaries look pretty awesome themselves, and you're getting 3 new legendaries anyway when the game launches. So,
because like I was really kind of curious about it because I would suspect that we'd be basically getting like 3 sets of distinct looking legendary armor types for the 3 armor classes.
Yeah.
But because there's like because like the classes that are in each armor type are so distinct, I'm really curious what those legendary armors are going to look like. Like, for instance, for the heavy one, are they going to try to make it, you know, Guardian-ish more, or more Warrior-ish, or like for the light armors, will it be more, you know,
I don't think
will it be associated or totally different?
They've certainly not done anything like that before with any of the currently existing armors. So you have light armor, you have medium armor, and you have heavy armor, and it only looks slightly different depending on the race that you have it on. It would be cool if they did that, but I think that the issue that you're running into there is you have one raid with 9 sets of legendary armor to get, and if each piece is going to be legendary, it's a very, very long-term goal. And even though obviously the idea is to introduce a little bit of kind of cosmetic grind to keep people playing the content, so you've got 9x6, which is 54. So if you have 9 separate armors and you have to get 6 pieces for each of it, you essentially have to farm, or you essentially have to craft 56 legendary items. And even though it's a good end game goal, it's quite a lot to ask.
Well, no, I like wasn't saying that like they'd like make like actually like 9 separate pieces. Just that like because like the light armor classes are so different from each other. Whatever the look of the legendary light armor is going to be, I was kind of curious if it's going to like thematically be more like one of those 3, or like.
Well, I think it's going to be
they have to actually have 9.
Like
sets,
the luminescent armor was. You know, you had a general look for light, you had a general look for medium, and a general look for heavy.
Yeah.
You know, so it's gonna be like that. So, but you're still gonna have to collect all the pieces. So it's not like a weapon where you get a legendary greatsword and yay, you have the greatsword. You know, you're gonna build the legendary chest, and then you're gonna have to build the legendary gloves and the legendary pants and the legendary shoes. So it's. Talk about, you know, an incentive to keep doing this content over and over and over, and that's the good part about them introducing new wings, new raids. You know, hopefully this is kind of a continuous thing, because it's gonna be, you know, kind of grindy. You're gonna have to keep doing this over and over if you're going for that reward.
I also like too, because with like the like armor sets that we're just talking about, was that it's like a really small mention that they made, but it's something that I'm actually personally really excited for, because I really don't know if I'd be jumping into the whole raid train with a lot of folks. Is that the guild halls, depending on which guild hall you get, each guild hall like section is going to have actually a different look themed set of armor pieces, armor sets. I mean, which is really awesome. That's the kind of stuff I love, is just to have that. Like one's like gothy, and then apparently one's like shiny. So that's really awesome that we're gonna have those armor sets, and then plus there's gonna be this big legendary armor set, and then there's even like some elite armor sets. So because like I know people were kind of concerned that there wasn't gonna be like new armor sets in the game in the expansion, and so it's nice to know that we're not only getting them, but we are getting like different themes for all 3, which is really awesome. I just wanted to throw that out.
Yeah, they actually listed in the new information on heartofthorns.guildwars2.com exactly how many maps. We're getting 4 maps. We're getting I don't know, I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but they listed the number of new armor sets we're getting, which I believe was 2 completely new armor sets, which is medium, light, heavy, and then another world. Medium, light, heavy. Right, this is not raids. This is for what guild?
General stuff.
Right.
Guild halls.
Not even guild halls, I don't think. Well, it's not exactly clear, but it says for open world content.
Right, right. And then a certain number of new weapon sets, and then a certain number of other items, which is like minis and probably back pieces, just like other skins, other rewards, that type of thing. So it was really cool to get those exact numbers. And I gotta admit, I was kind of scared those numbers were gonna be low, but I was happy with all of the numbers that I saw.
Yeah, I was pleased.
I mean,
and this is just for now. This is just on launch. They could add more in the future.
Yeah, be pretty cool if they'd. I mean, they've done it in living story updates, and they've added the ascended armor skins and that kind of thing. So yeah, I can't see any reason why not. And like they were saying at the announcement, there's always going to be more living world stuff coming in after the expansions come in. So when we start looking to season 3 of the living world, historically we've always got a couple of weapon skins and the odd kind of fancy shiny thing for completing something. So if they can incorporate armor skins into that as well, I think that'd be really nice, rather than just another candy corn node in my home instance or something.
I actually thought that was a really interesting point, because when they were talking about the living world updates, it sounded like the living world updates are going to be directly related to this expansion. So do you guys think that might be that there's going to be like after the campaign story in Heart of Thorns, do you think that there's going to be an actual like season length of essentially the Heart of Thorns story? Well, because that's the kind of thing that I was kind of thinking about, that within like about 3 or 4 months they can maybe release now it's the Heart of Thorns season essentially.
Well, Well, no, I mean what they've said is that by the end of the expansion, the Heart of Thorns story will be resolved. So whatever that means for Mordramoth, whatever that means for the Maguma Jungle, by the time you finish the Heart of Thorns story, it's pretty much going to be done. Because the raids themselves are built to take place after the Heart of Thorns expansion has finished. So it would be a bit daft to have the final boss as a raid that takes place after the end of the campaign. But they have always said that there's going to be more stuff after Heart of Thorns that you are going to need the expansion to buy. And I think we had this discussion the other week as well about whether or not they should gate story content to slow people's roll through the expansion. And I think we kind of universally said that would be a pretty crap idea, because obviously you get the people who speed through everything in 2 weeks, and if they get to a point of something that they paid, what, $50 for, and then they're being gated so they can't play content over something that they bought at full price, there's going to be a lot of outrage there. So yeah, as far as I know, the story is going to be available to everybody up to the end of the Heart of Thorns arc, and then we'll see where it goes.
Living World Season 3, which they've said they're continuing Living World, so we're going to get Season 3. Now, whether Season 3 is going to be a precursor to the next expansion, it's going to set up the story for the next expansion. If they've said that Heart of Thorns is going to kind of complete the story, there's always going to be questions. There's always going to be more for us to do, more for us to explore. But I'm really happy to hear that it's going to come to some kind of finality. Hope, whether we defeat Mordramoth or whatever. And we've discussed the possibilities of that before. But I can imagine that Living World Season 3 then could be maybe tying up loose ends from Heart of Thorns. Hopefully, though, it's setting up for the next expansion.
Yeah.
See, I just found it kind of confusing. Just not to be an argumentative little beep, but it's when I read their thing, was that they're saying that the Heart of Thorns expansion is going to be including Living World things within it to tell that story. So that's why I was getting confused with it, because I find it odd just to want the entire story and resolution completely in the expansion right when you get it, because then you could essentially finish it for the real speedrunners in less than a week for the entire story, and then of course that would
there's going to be people who do that, and there's nothing you can do about that. Even if they gate it behind the mastery system, even if you can't just literally go in 6 hours and finish a story because you need to level up through the mastery system in order to physically get to the next area, or maybe you have to have a certain number of mastery points unlocked in order to unlock the next part of the story, because that's how the current personal story is. You can't even start your personal story until you get to level 10 now, and then every 10 levels it unlocks another chapter of the story. So because masteries are the end game progression past 80, perhaps you have to get a certain number of mastery points, or you have to level up a certain number of mastery lines, or like I said, you physically can't get there until you have gliding level 5. You can't get to the next one, so you need to go through and take that time to level, to get a mastery point, to get that experience until you can get to the next part of the Heart of Thorns story. I have a very strong feeling that that's how it's going to be, so that you can't get to the end, defeat Mordramoth in 6 hours, and go on the internet and spoil it for everyone. The ArenaNet has showed us that that's not how they do things.
Don't you ruin my dream. I don't want to spoil it for everybody. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think you're gonna need, you'll need gliding, or maybe you'll need the mushrooms or something for specific parts of the story. I just hope that it lets you know before you start a story, and I'm not sure exactly how it would do that. That, hey, you're gonna need mushroom jumping for this particular one, or maybe there'll be alternate ways. Maybe you could take gliding or mushrooms depending on what's happening in the story. But you're right, some sort of, and I know this is going to sound bad, nobody likes the name artificial gating, but I think there will be some sort of artificial gating mechanic to stop you from just, like you said, sprinting through the story to the very end. There's no level caps anymore. There's nothing to stop us from going from level 50 story to level 60 story, for example. So there has to be, or there probably will be, some other kind of gating mechanic there.
I mean, it might be something as simple as putting the mission start points at places where you have to have the gliding.
Yeah. That's what I think
the gliding mastery at particular points, like you have to glide over a chasm to get to something, or you have to use a bouncy speedy mushroom or something to get to the start point. Again, like Inga says, it's artificial gating, but if it's to prolong the life of the expansion, then I don't necessarily see it as a bad idea.
I just find it kind of like hard for my brain that's used to the traditional kind of MMO expansion thing to kind of get the terms, because there's like so many new things that they can be doing with this expansion. Like they're already doing new stuff, like we're saying, like there isn't any like level cap, which is fantastic, and I love it. And like talking to other people that are used to that traditional MMORPG thing, when it's like, oh, there's no level increase like to level 90, how does that work? Because they're like, huh? And that's the thing that I really like about ArenaNet, is that they're willing to just do all these new frickin' things that are like, whoa, like, so it's like my old brain is having a hard time understanding this.
Well, the story's rather interesting, right? So first of all, we're going to have the entire Heart of Thorns story leading up to, Wardremoth, maybe. We don't even know. There may or may not be a cliffhanger there. We know there'll be some sort of wrap-up, some sort of payoff at the very end, and then raiding sort of continues that story, or maybe it branches off to a completely different story.
That's what I think.
And somehow Living World Season 3 comes in. What would be really interesting to me is to have some sort of finality on Wardremoth. Maybe we kill him, maybe we don't kill him, but some sort of final wrap-up there, and hopefully maybe Living World Season 3 takes off in a different direction. The only question I have there is it really going to take us out of the jungle? I think it's going to take us north of the jungle. I don't know that we're necessarily going to be leaving the jungle for at least Living World Season 3. Now, Living World Season 4, talking an entire year plus down the line, I mean, super far speculation. I think that could take us out of the jungle, but I think we're going to be stuck in the jungle, or stuck is a bad word. I think we're going to be in the jungle for like the next year or so.
Mm-hmm.
Unless, of course, that amazing painting is actually connected to where the story is going, and I think you guys know the one I'm talking about. That freaking amazing effing tidal wave with those gigantic freaking dragon heads coming out. That I had like a freaking nerdgasm watching that thing. It's just.
Well, the thing is, what's interesting is that the maps that seem to have been data mined or whatever so far seems to indicate that instead of heading north towards the Sea of Janthir, we're actually going to be heading south towards the coast on the unending ocean. And for people who haven't seen this picture, it's essentially like this giant three-headed hydra coming out of the ocean. And as we all know, Bubbles, the deep sea dragon, has yet to be revealed. And the internet is currently going bananas about seeing Bubbles. So, underwater expansion!
Or one of his minions, maybe.
Yeah.
One of his lieutenants, perhaps.
Yeah.
How did I miss this picture? How did I completely miss this?
Oh, dude, it's so cool.
It's amazing. It was a background picture for something on the website, I think.
I heard about that, but then I never actually found anybody who like extracted it or whatever.
I saw it on a Wooden Potatoes video talking about it, and the things that he was bringing up sound fantastic. Is that the idea that this is a like minion lieutenant that attacks Lion's Arch, but Lion's Arch doesn't actually get destroyed. That Lion's Arch, all the improvements that are put in place show that Lion's Arch can take on a freaking dragon minion, and that's like, it's like all of this crazy stuff works, like all the freaking like char turrets and stuff like works, and then they're like, oh, bring it on, Bubbles, and then it's kind of cool, but yeah, oh god, that picture is so amazing. Yeah.
I'll try and find a link to it while we keep talking, but
yeah, I
so
just
amazing.
Put it in chat there.
Because I think something that was slightly that I think I was a little bit concerned about was whether or not we just kind of kill Wardremoth and then just be like, right, kill Wardremoth, let's move on to the next bit and do that. But if they can construct the story like they did with the Living World, you can actually link everything along, and everything kind of flows into each other. Getting yourself down to to the coast to take on Bubbles would be pretty cool. But again, like Ink said, we're talking, you know, at least a year down the line here.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. You know, a lot of people are expressing concern over us just killing the dragon, then another dragon comes up and we kill that dragon too. I think there's twists and turns, and that's not going to make that blanket simple. I don't think it's going to be. Maybe we don't kill Mordremoth. Maybe there's something that we've learned that tells us we shouldn't kill him because doing so upsets the balance of the planet, etc., etc. There's some twists and turns that's going to come in there.
Yes.
And besides, nobody had a problem with it in Skyrim, so, you know.
Well, we also have that interesting little bit that, of course, they haven't given any more info about, is saying that there's a secret to Glint's legacy within the heart of Maguma, which... And the fact that throughout Season 2, we did learn that wonderful tidbit saying... Essentially kind of telling us, you know, killing Zaitan and killing these dragons, yes, you know, like they keep saying... Their evil comes up and they want to suck all the magic and kill all of you, but it's like, but they seem to be a natural part of Tyria's process, so killing one out of joints the frickin' unity of the planet, so trying to shoot one off in monkeys in a barrel is kind of like, maybe you might not want to try to do that. Maybe Glint's legacy will tell us how to get them not to kill us. It's like, you can rise and eat your magic, just don't kill us if you can, you know, just maybe have a quiet siesta, you know. Yeah,
perhaps that's inevitable because we use magic, right? Elementalists or classes in general all use and manipulate magic in some sort of way, which the dragon wants to consume all of it. He doesn't want to leave any magic for anybody.
Yeah,
I personally love the story of the Elder Dragon. Sorry, yeah.
Oh yeah, no, I was just saying that they could take the story anywhere, but I'm hoping, and I think most people are hoping, that they take it in a little bit of a different direction than just, okay, we killed this dragon, now let's kill the next one, and the next one, and the next one. And we've also got this whole thing where, you know, Ritlock has been to the mists. He obviously has harnessed the power of the mists, so, and anything can come out of or happen within the mists. So maybe that'll be explored a little more. We saw in the trailer for the raids that this giant tongue boss came out of this dimensional rift, it looked like. So if this is happening after Heart of Thorns, perhaps either maybe we kill Mordremoth, and like you said, that kind of is starting to we really see the effects of killing an elder dragon and breaking down the magic and the fabric. Maybe the elder dragons and the magic in the world were part of keeping Tyria separate from the mists, so maybe that barrier is starting to break down, and so we realize that we can't kill any more dragons, or these terrible monsters from the mists are going to start coming into Tyria more and more, and then we've got a situation like the Titans in Guild Wars 1.
I really love the idea.
The raids are defeating these bosses that are getting through.
Titan.
Or that is a Titan. I don't know.
I was one of the things that I really hope can happen is that whenever we go to Cantha, for hopefully the next expansion, for instance, I'd really love it if a great reason to go there is because it is so obviously Asian, you know, culture. It's this is our mash of Asian cultures, you know, Asian land. Is that Asians have such a different view of dragons than traditional Western culture, and it's such a much more benevolent approach to them. It would be really cool if we could actually find out a lot more about these elder dragon things within Cantha, that it has some kind of secrets to say, yeah, there's a way to not kill them because you're shooting yourself in the foot if you try knocking them off one by one. Yes.
The Tengu know the secret. And why are they all, maybe, I don't know.
Give me my Tengu.
I'm going to go off on a crazy tangent here. Why are they all around Tyria? Why Tyria? Why aren't they attacking Alona or Cantha or any of the other continents? We have the entire world map now. Less magic.
Tyria,
well, yeah.
Tyria just tastes better, I guess, man.
I guess so.
It's tastier.
Of course, you have the whole thing with the bloodstones and all that, and that's in Tyria. So, and that's in the Maguma jungle. So that could very Right. So that whole thing could come into we could be seeing that whole storyline in Heart of Thorns. I would love it.
Well, the thing is, potentially, if it's possible that humans and magic didn't spread beyond Canthril, Lona, and Tyria. Because if you look at the history of Tyria as a planet, the human gods came down to Tyria. Tyria, as we know it today, the ancient kingdom of Or. They came down to Artesian waters. And even though we have the 5 elder races, we still really don't know too much about how widespread they were. And Doric's human kingdom only extended to from Ascalon, Or, and Kryta. And then all of the god stuff it was very condensed into that area. Never mind that Cantha itself actually has a completely different pantheon if you play through Tanakai Temple. What's the one where you become Tanakai Temple. I think the one with like all the constellations in the sky. So Cantha actually has a completely different pantheon to Tyria. So on that logic alone, they're kind of separate. But there's really no evidence to suggest, aside from a few names on a map, that humans ever spread further than the half dozen human kingdoms that we know about. So the Foundry could be a dwarven citadel or something like that. Mm-hmm. And the big frozen waste to the north could be entirely populated by somebody like the Kodan, or whether a still intelligent Jund that didn't go all completely herp.
That would be cool. Yeah.
All right, let's move on to we had announcements today, a bunch of announcements about World versus World. So it's not my area of expertise.
Neither
take it away.
Anyone?
Go Inks, go!
So we have another World vs. World Borderlands stress test. They're going to open it up to a larger group of players, obviously, this time. Getting more people in to see the map, to test the map. It's a stress test, so obviously to stress it out, see how the servers handle things. This is going to happen 11 a.m. Pacific time, September 8th, and it's going to run until September 10th. So there's a Mordrum event coming up, which we really haven't talked about yet, but this is going to run up until that, I think. I'd have to go look at the other dates. But you're going to have this weekend test, then you're going to have a World vs. World stress test, which it won't be open to everybody, but they're inviting a ton of more people. So start checking your emails, I guess, starting today at some point, I would guess, or maybe in a couple of days. So that's going to go run on. And then there was a World vs. World objective claiming deep dive with Tyler Bierce. The points of interest show on Friday will be all about this deep dive, so a lot more information coming from that. But it does sound very interesting. It's all about guilds and how guilds claim objectives and things they can do with those objectives. It goes into a lot of explanation on different things you can slot into into the objectives that you claim. And they have something called tactics, which is very interesting. So tactics, there's a number of different tactics, but these are short-term like buffs that you can give to obtained objectives. Excuse me, I'm stuttering. But there's different tiers for these things. We're not gonna go through all of them here on the show. You guys can read the blog post, or I'm sure there will be videos put out by various content creators on all this stuff. But tune in to Points of Interest on Friday, where Ruby and Tyler will be talking about this in huge detail about how this works. I will say that if you're a World vs. World player, or even a casual World vs. World player, all this stuff looks really interesting. It looks like it's going to add a lot of flavor to World vs. World, and the upgrade system itself looks rather detailed, and the UI looks nice and all that kind of stuff.
And there's going to be like one ability, you summon a giant spirit turtle and it blasts people off of the map.
Yeah, the turtle is you can summon a spirit centaur, I think. There's a turtle, there's a dragon, there's a couple of different ones that work under these tactic things, and they all sound pretty cool. Turtle is like way out there, but yeah.
And it actually says cowabunga when you do it. I wish it does, but
there are a ton of events coming up this weekend. We've got, of course, the beta. Another beta weekend. We get to play everything but 2 specializations. Everything but Druid and Engineer Elite Spec. Everything else is playable.
Give me Druid.
Yes.
So the 8th to the 10th next week is the World vs. World beta. Like I said, that is a closed thing, but they're inviting a lot more people. So check all your inboxes for that. You'll get if you're signed up to the newsletter, you'll get an email saying that you're in and give you instructions. And then I believe on the 10th, next Thursday, I believe, is the Mordrum event. So if you're a new player to Guild Wars 2, they suggest that you level up to level 18 or so in order to take part in these events. This is an open world event where Mordrum are going to be kind of, coming out of the jungle and attacking the surrounding areas. So, and there's going to be new rewards and stuff associated with that, new drops. And
I was going to say, for the veteran players, does this, or the people who've been around a bit longer since Season 1, it does remind everybody of the Aether Blade invasions, doesn't it?
Yeah, the Scarlet invasions, big time.
Oh, that was fun.
Do you remember them before they were patched? When it was just
yeah.
buffet.
I think what's interesting about this, one of the reasons I think ArenaNet is doing this really is to give all of these new players a taste of what these living world events are like. We had a lot more of these, I think, in Season 1 than Season 2, but just in general, when the game launches October 23rd, Halloween's going to be around. It's a whole other celebration event as well that a lot of people are excited about. We have Winter's Day sometime after that. But ArenaNet is known to drop in these one-off events every now and again. It lets you participate, get some loot, and we don't know exactly what loot's going to be offered, but it should be rather interesting. You only have to get to level 18 in order to really participate well in this. And considering you have like a week and something, even if you play kind of casually, I don't think that's too far out of reach for most players to get to that level.
Yeah.
I would say as well, though, don't roll, if you're getting a new character, don't roll a Norn, because it's their second area that isn't getting these events. So it's not Snowden Drifts. It's Keswick's DS. Yeah, I thought that as well. I was like, why not Snowden? But it's Brisbane Wildlands, Diessa Plateau, and Keswick's Hill. So Human, Silvari, Azura, and Char starting areas. I mean, because the problem is, if you're on a free-to-play account, you'll be able to, once you get past level 10... Oh no, well, if you're past level 10, you'll be able to jump around to the other you can jump around to the other starting areas anyway, but you won't be able to take the shortcut through Lion's Arch.
Right. I think you get a waypoint unlocked in every starting city. You
do, but... oh no, you get a waypoint in every starting zone unlocked.
Okay.
So, but the thing is, if you're a relatively new player, and you're still exploring the game, having to jump into a completely different zone, and then having to find your way into something that's completely new as well, I think that could be kind of quite daunting, especially when you're still trying to learn the game.
Sure, but there's going to be so many veterans there. There's going to be commander tags. There's going to be people directing new players and old players. So I don't think it'll be something new. You may suddenly jump to a completely different part of the map, but that might be a cool thing. If you're a Char player and you've just been wandering around the ruins of Ascalon, to suddenly jump into the jungle might be like a cool thing, like seeing another part of the game for the first time through this event. So I really hope that new players, that's something that they can appreciate and that they take part in.
And everyone is correcting me in saying that you can get into a Diessa by turning right at the top of Wayfura Foothills, which they are completely correct. Yeah.
and any of the new players, if anyone watching this becomes a new player, of course. If you roll Char, you will not roll anything else. I'm just saying. Because they are the master race, so just, it's the only race you need to play. You'll be good.
Speaking of new players, let's talk a little bit about the game going play for free.
Oh my god, the game's banned for them.
In all seriousness, I think we all think that this is a wonderful thing, right?
Yeah, I mean...
oh, yeah, go on. Sorry. You go first.
No. Go ahead, Alex. Go ahead.
After you.
It's fantastic, except that new players can't access the forum. That is my only slight gripe.
This is a bad thing?
For me, yeah. I think that having to rely on third-party community sites, I'm not convinced. But I had a quick conversation with Ruby about it, and apparently it was a big should we or shouldn't we kind of thing. And I can understand the direction that they took with that, even if I don't completely agree with it. But there we go. The rest is fantastic.
Yeah.
There's so many sites out there, so many guides, so many places that Guild Wars 2 players can talk. I don't think the official forums is something that they need access to. And they can read it, right?
They can read it.
Post.
They just can't post. They can't start a new conversation, and they can't
reply. They can't reply.
Right. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you really need help with the game, like if you need to talk to ArenaNet directly, you can always tweet at them. Like, that's still an option available to you, obviously. Yeah. And, of course, you can submit an in-game ticket to support. So it's not like you're totally cut off as far as communicating with them. It's just a matter of not being able to use the forums to its full extent.
Right.
Yeah.
Reddit is better than the forums.
Everybody's going to have their own opinion on where it's best to go. But if you want to actually know something about the game, I say go to the wiki first. Go to wiki.guildwars2.com and search for what your question is. Or go to YouTube and search for a tutorial on what you are having trouble with. So first of all, I don't think this is news to anyone that the base game has gone free, but it has basically gone play for free, which we can debate all day on what that means versus free to play versus other games. But basically, you can play. Anybody can now sign up, make an account, download the game, and play it for free. But you do have restrictions on your account, and these restrictions are much, much less than a lot of other games I've seen that have gone free to play or play for free. For example, you're not like cut off from half the story or half the world. You're not like limited to a certain level cap. You can basically play the entire game, explore the entire world, make any race you want, any class you want, anything in the core game. And the only real restrictions are to really cut down on spamming, gold selling, people who are going to abuse the system. And I think I agree with pretty much every restriction they've put in place.
You know, it's interesting. There was something in chat, and this is absolutely true. When something goes play for free or free to play, for whatever reason, it's often viewed by players as the game is dying. And I just have to, and I realize that exists. I just have to stress enough that this is inaccurate in every way for almost every game that goes free to play. When SWTOR went play for free or free to play or whatever they call their model, it exploded in the amount of money that companies started to make. That was a game that was struggling. You might even say was dying or having a very difficult time as an MMO. They went play for free or free to play. Their system, in my opinion, is not even close to the best system there is out there for that. And even they seen an explosion in numbers of players coming to the game, adding to the community that already existed, and generally boosting that company's numbers. And since then, they've gone and released tons of content that you might not have gotten if it didn't go that route.
Yeah, there's 3 or 4 expansions in SWTOR now, and you're absolutely like I subscribed to it for a little bit when it first came out, and in the first 6 months they lost 80% of their subs, which is a colossal amount. But you're absolutely right. Even though free to play, it saved the game, and the same thing happened to Lord of the Rings Online. The difference is though that you're pushed into using microtransactions in SWTOR much more than you are in Guild Wars 2. I mean, you've got stuff like you've only got 2 character slots, you've only got 3 bag slots, which is the cut down of what fully paid up players have. If you're paid up player, you have 5 character slots and I think 5 bag slots by default. But you can always use even fully paid up characters have to buy extra slots and extra bag slots with gems. But with something like Star Wars: The Old Republic, you had to buy even like you had a pitiful inventory and you had to buy extra lines for real money and it was pathetic the amount of space that you got for your money. You had a limit on on the amount of money that you could carry with you. You didn't have access to the sprint skill, which increased your movement by 10% if you didn't have a subscription to the game. All that kind of stuff. This, fairly high priority quality of life stuff was very important, and none of it was directly designed to help stop spamming, because you still get spammed to hell in Guild Wars, in SWOTOR, sorry. You log in and it's there in your mailbox and everything.
Most MMOs, it's a big issue.
Yeah.
And that's why ArenaNet's putting a lot of these restrictions in place. It's to help, or at least, they hope it helps stopping the overall spam of gold sellers, of making accounts to do those sorts of things. That's why all those things are in place. And I realize for someone who's brand new to Guild Wars 2, some of those restrictions might be a tad annoying if you just want to try and play the game out. But that's the whole point. You can play as much of the game as you want. You're not restricted in any way as far as which dungeons you can do, which PvP you can do, which open world content you want to do. You can do all that as much as you want. You want to play 40 hours a week? Might be crazy, but go ahead. You can do so. And in other MMOs and other games, you don't necessarily have that amount of freedom within the game if you're playing on a free account.
Yeah.
Now, Guild Wars 2, AuroraPeachy was just saying, their business model isn't changing. It's still a buy-to-play game. You want to play Heart of Thorns, you want the latest content, you want Living World Season 3, you have to pay for the game. You have to buy it. And I don't think there's a single person on this podcast that would say that the game is not worth its money.
Oh, God.
We have all gotten thousands of hours out of this.
I don't know. I mean,
without a doubt.
3,500 hours.
Couple cents
I've not quite
hour.
made up my mind yet. Give me another.
I was actually funny.
Years and we'll see.
I was finding it fascinating, right? Because also this month is when WildStar is going free to play with their model, and I find that interesting because we know that Carbine and ArenaNet are at least friendly to each other, because Guild Wars 2 actually advertised WildStar when it came out. That's how buddies there. Oh hey, these guys are releasing it on their actual Guild Wars 2 thing. They're hey, look at WildStar, which I thought was kind of cute. But I was bringing this up just because it's kind of neat, because they're if you look at those two models, it's kind of they're kind of taking stuff from each other. Because the free to play model that WildStar has, it's got a lot of stuff like Guild Wars 2, in that you can use everything that you buy off of their game store. You can basically build up in-game money to buy, so you don't actually have to spend a dime really in WildStar. In a similar way to Guild Wars 2, that especially now, if you go to the free play thing that it's going into, you don't have to buy gems. You can just get gold and buy gems for it.
That is one of the restrictions, right?
Oh, that is? Sorry, I feel like such an ass.
You can't do that with a free account.
No, I was confused about that too at first.
To be fair, I think that is a little bit cheeky that you can't convert your money into gems, but
that's the whole point of giving the game away for free, though, is that they want that money from the gem store. Although they've also said, we're convinced that, if you get in and try the game for free, that you're going to fall so in love that you're going to buy Heart of Thorns.
You're going to buy
you're going to buy the expansions.
The other thing
how
to
the
think
hell
about
can you
is
not
this.
buy Heart of Thorns? Oh,
It stops botters and spammers, or not spammers. It stops botters from making an insane amount of money, converting that money into gems,
Ruining
and then
the economy.
Gifting away gem store items to people for, let's say, less money. Let's say, you want to buy the new wedding attire? Come to our third-party crappy website where you're probably going to get viruses and hacked, and you can get it for 400 gems of real-life money. You know what I mean?
Right,
so it stops
right.
that sort of practices.
Yeah.
That's true, yeah.
I didn't even think of that. That's absolutely true.
Me either.
And
that
everything
makes
they put in
sense,
place is to stop ruining of the economy. You can only trade and sell certain items on the gem store, because they don't want you, again, farmers. They don't want farmers and botters ruining the economy. Not being able to mail items or gold to other accounts. just the list goes on and on. There's a website that you can see all of the exact. They put it in a really nice chart. They say if you have a free version, this is what you get. If you have the full version of the base game, this is what you get. If you have Heart of Thorns, this is what you get. And it's very easy to read. Someone can throw up the link in chat, and I agree with just about everything. So it's a good thing. It's a good thing. Yeah. I'm very happy they did this. Do you think that this was a good time for them to do this? Do you think that they should have done this earlier? Do you think they should have waited?
To me, it was a bit out of left field. I didn't quite get why
now?
Why they were going for it. Yeah, I mean, there was the announcement that they made when all that character slot nonsense went on, that they said that the only thing that you're ever going to buy from ArenaNet is the full Guild Wars 2 experience. So when you buy Heart of Thorns, you get the core game of Heart of Thorns. When you buy the next expansion, I assume you're going to get everything previous to that.
Yeah, I would assume
so I think. So
I think. Go ahead, Alex. Finish up.
I was going to say, so I think eventually, when all the expansions are out, you'd probably get the core game for free, and then you'd buy like a top up for the expansions or something, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. Well,
I think going forward, Heart of Thorns eventually will be free as well whenever the next expansion comes out. It's going to be one of these continuing things. You want the next expansion, you want the latest content, buy the game. That's how their model works. You have to buy the game.
Yeah.
And some players are always going to feel oddly, and I say oddly because I don't really understand it, they're going to feel slighted in some way that you've been playing a game for 3 years or 2 years, and all of a sudden a new player can come in and get some of that experience, or a good portion of that experience, for free. You've been experiencing it for 3 years. I mean, I don't really understand that argument too much, but that's always going to be a thing with Guild Wars 2, I guess, because I feel like going forward, they're always going to say the next expansion costs you X amount of dollars in order to buy into it. And now, hey, you can now unlock, you can play all of Heart of Thorns, but it's been 2 years. I experienced that, and I had that joy of playing through that content for like 2 years. So I don't feel slighted in the least that someone who's just starting Guild Wars 2 today is getting something for less than I paid. Because I have so many more things than that player has that they're going to have to play for a long time to catch up to where I'm at least in terms of the game.
I've always found it a very strange sense of gamer entitlement that can happen with like that like sense of like people saying, what about veterans? I've been playing for 3 years. I've been through the wars. It's like, dude, it's a video game, and you know, things progress through time. And we do need more people to come in, you know, it's good to bring more people in, and we shouldn't attack and denigrate new people coming in, because we were all newbies at one point. So, you know, like Inks, I find it bizarre. It's kind of a childish, knee-jerk reaction I find with people. It's kind of like, I mean, you got to look at it from the game's business perspective of the developers and the people making the game. Like they do want to make some money, but then also just, you know, things progress, and yeah, I find it really silly to get ticked off, for instance, of like, oh, this is a smite against me, loyally paying you or playing your game for 3 years, but nobody forced you to play whatever game for 10, 15 years, you know, you were doing it yourself. And
as far as play for free and its timing, like certainly I didn't expect it. I really didn't expect it when it was announced, but I think it's actually the perfect time. We have 50-ish days before Heart of Thorns gets launched. That gives players 50 days to play for free to see if they like the game. If they're hooked, like ArenaNet thinks they will be, then they're going to buy it and be there at launch for the expansion, obviously. So that gives plenty of time for players to enjoy what there is, to see whether they want to buy into the expansion or not. And ArenaNet's going to tease them with events, or at least this Mordrum event in the meantime, to show them what they're capable of doing before Heart of Thorns launches. Says, you know what, look how great we are at releasing content to you about how the game plays itself, the game sells itself, you know, in their mind, and I don't disagree with that. So I think this is actually the perfect time to boost those pre-purchase numbers, get people in, say, I absolutely love this game, you know what, I'm willing to pay for the expansion, everything sounds amazing, I got time to get to 80 before Heart of Thorns hits, and now I'm ready to go when the game launches.
Right.
And there's so much awesome stuff coming in Heart of Thorns. Like I had a little bit of like a tweet beep fest with some people about when I was saying how I like thought there was so much awesome stuff coming in this thing, especially after last week, and I was like, man, this is fantastic stuff, and people were like, it's not enough. I'm like, I don't know. Our characters are gonna speak again, man. For the whole freaking story instance, they're gonna be talking and getting talked back to and talking back, and the voices in Guild Wars 2 are so much fun. The voice actors are fantastic, man. Like, that alone is why you should buy this freaking expansion.
Alright guys, we are going to wrap up the show there. I think we've covered everything. We're going to keep covering stuff in the post-show. So if you're watching live on Twitch, please stay tuned for the post-show. We will go into these topics a little bit more. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you so much for watching. You can scroll down and find links to all of our pages. And please join us live on Twitch every Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. We go live for the show here on Twitch, twitch.tv/Aurora_Peachy. The link is down in the description. Thank you everyone for watching, and we will see you next week. Bye-bye!
See you next time, guys.